In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to start a new campaign from scratch. So first and foremost, you're going to need a sense of imagination. You're going to need to be able to be imaginative to come up with new ideas and discussions. And well, I'm assuming that you sort of know that. The second thing you need to do is you need to decide what set of rules you're going to start with. I won't say that that's the set of rules that you stay with, but that's the set of rules that you start with. So that may or may not pick your setting. Like if you pick up something like Savage Worlds, you may have to decide, is it set in the future? So that's a third thing you have to decide is what kind of setting are you going to want to run in? So you need imagination, you need a set of rules, and then you need to decide where your characters are going to start. And, are they running into a tavern? That's the classic where they run into each other in a tavern. And that's all you need. I say that's all you need. You need a set of rules, nothing else. People who go into all this detail about you got to plan out the gods and so on. No, you don't. Let me give you an example. A World of Tiglath, which I consider a reasonably successful campaign. Reasonably successful. It went on for 2 years till I did a total party kill and then rebooted it and I'm rerunning again. That's all I started with. I picked up D&D 4th edition. I had never played D&D 4th edition. I'd played 3rd edition and 2nd edition and 1st, but I'd never played 4th edition. All I planned out was, yes, I had some maps, but they were from a, shall we say, a previous campaign going back to 2nd edition, and I was completely rebooting the adventure. So yeah, I had some maps I could use, but that's not a big deal because the first few adventures it didn't matter. What happened is they started for the World of Tiglath. The way I started it was like everybody was drafted and you're sent off basically into the middle of nowhere in a going through boot camp, and then the invasion happens and you're sort of left on your own. So you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're in an unknown, in a land that, what's the classic phrase? You're as a stranger in a strange land, and that's where you start. And if you want to start at some other place, some other way, but that's all you need. And I didn't know what direction the campaign was going. I knew that I'd set it in the Bronze Age. I wanted to set it in the Bronze Age because I wanted to do some interesting things. That Bronze Age has always intrigued me, and I thought no paper, no horse, no saddles, some things like that. I knew that there was going to be an invasion, and that's all I had planned out. I hadn't really planned out how the kingdoms were run, etc. I started to flesh out as I went along. I picked up from the players what was going on. I started to think about what the ramifications of being in Bronze Age were, and I started putting those things out. It was months before I started thinking about what kind of gods are in this world, and what kind of cities. Actually, in the strange part about it was I actually drew up a city fairly detailed, and the party avoided it like the plague. They didn't want to go anywhere near the city. They were avoiding the city because they were terrified of what was going on. And as things went on, I started introducing and organizing my thoughts and adding things. But I had great adventures. I had some of the first games were some of the ones that were actually the most memorable. And what happened was it was because I had very little written down. I had very little planned out. It was all dependent upon the players and where they went, and it spurred my imagination to flesh out everything else. So when I see these videos and these blogs about, let's plan out what kind of politics and so on, yes, it helps. Don't get me wrong. I always believe preparation helps. And if you lay all that out beforehand, that's great. And I knew that was running kingdoms. I'd made that decision, and I knew that one kingdom had invaded the other kingdom, and that was it. And I didn't think about why it had invaded, what the ramifications were, how the invasions were, what triggered the invasion. All of that came much, much later. And the players had no concept of when that is. But as they kept going through, they would find more and more things that sort of revealed. And it revealed there's underlying structure that they perceived as underlying structure, which was just added sort of ad hoc as I went through and started fleshing it out. But I encourage you, start with a minimal world. Just you need a place where they start. How do they get there? How do the players come together? And that's about all you need. I mean, you come up with some ideas for some possible adventures that they want to go on, that they hear certain rumors, certain things like that. But actually, if you're brave, you could start without even that. And what I mean by that is if you start off with character creation and you listen to your players and they go, just listen to them. And you'll hear wonderful ideas that you can steal and immediately put into practice. So what happens is that it's not hard. Dungeon mastering is not hard. And this whole thing about all this preparation, yes, I prepare for hours before each game. And I'm foolish. It's sort of obsessive compulsive disorder on my part. And because they never go the way I plan. But it's always preparation for next time when another party comes in or even this party returns, then they go the way I planned for them to, where I thought they would go. Then I have that already prepared and I understand that and I can pull up my notes. And about 90% of the time I take a look at what I prepared beforehand and I go, oh, but I need to make some changes because things have changed. So keeping notes about how things works becomes important. But even that, you can be inconsistent and the players will never catch it because you can always, we're in a fantasy world. We can always fudge things and you don't really need to plan things out. I mean, do you need a map? Yes, I've had maps. I had one world that had a square map. It was not a globe. It was flat. The sun rose. The sun rose in the east, and the sun circled the flat plain. You could go off the edge of the world. Players never got to that. I mean, I've drawn up cities that players have never been to. They know it's on the map, but they never go there. There are places that are on the map that they never go to, that the players know about. So what happens is plan out, give yourself some ideas. If you throw a map together that you can sort of lay things out, but you don't need it to start with. Because the first couple of adventures, the players are going to be totally lost and you're going to take advantage of that. They don't know, to the north is a swamp and to the south is a desert and maybe that is all you need. And you can plan out and go from there and steal ideas from your players' minds. That's the key. Because the conversation, if you get the conversation going and the players are worried about things and they want to survive and that, keep track of those things and that will help play into creating an adventure that people come back. I say I'm semi-successful because I've had tons of fun. And that's the important part. Make sure it's fun and don't listen to these people who say, oh, I've got to plan out the economy and I've got to plan out the gods and I've got to plan out all of this. I go, no, don't. Just you'll come up with them later on. The reason I even started laying out the gods is because characters are going, what gods can my character worship? And I go, okay, that's sort of an interesting question. So I laid out the gods and I stole some things and I wrote a theogony. For those of you who aren't familiar, look up Hesiod's Theogony, and that's the description of where the gods came from. And I stole ideas from even Egyptian mythos and various other mythos and mixed them together and created my gods. But I didn't start with it. That didn't exist for a long time, and it's still not what I would consider complete. I've defined what the gods were and their interaction, what God likes, what God, how they came into being, and so on. But there's a whole bunch of stuff to it to do with that. But it's not the important part of the adventure. It says I started the world of Tiglath where your country's been invaded by an enemy army. And I stole some ideas and I says, okay, what's the enemy army like? And from there I created a creature and called the Tronlith. And from there I go, okay, I thought of the Tronlith many, many years before. And it was one of the things that I fit into the campaign because it is a very powerful creature that I wanted the forces to have that no one else had, that they came in and it was part of how that, and then it's years later, literally years later, how did the Tronlith come to be? Why does it have these attributes? I started laying those out much later because I started filling them in as I started filling in the plots of things we're going. But the key was get going, get started. It's like somebody says, how do you write a book? Well, you have to sit down and write. And the ideas hopefully will come. Keep coming, keep writing. If you want to be a dungeon master, start dungeon mastering. You want to be a game master, start game mastering. That's the most important thing. Figure out all the details as you go, and that makes the game much more dynamic because you haven't planned it all out in excruciating detail. And I worry that there are people who are going, oh, I need so many complicated rules before, I have to plan so much before I start my campaign. And I go, no, just start your campaign. That's the key. Start the campaign, and from there, things will flow. But I hope to hear that some of you actually take my advice and start game mastering now. Because you don't need all that. You need some sort of rules, and you need some initial ideas, and you need a sense of imagination and a sense of adventure. That's all you need. If you like my video, press the thumbs up button. I'd appreciate that. Or if this interests you, you can always subscribe to my channel. There's a button right above. I look forward to hearing some comments. Tell me what you think about this, and I'll try and reply, and we can see if I'll do some more of these. Thank you.